Professor Keltics stood at the front of Lecture Hall 7, all four of his arms clasped, behind his back in what he clearly believed was an impressive pose. His chitinous blue exoskeleton gleamed under the soft bioluminescent lighting, and his compound eyes swept across the assembled music students with the kind of condescension that only a tenured academic could truly perfect. "Welcome, welcome," he announced, his voice resonating through the translation implants every student wore, "to comparative species ethics, the cornerstone course of xenosociological studies here at Galactic University." The classroom was a rainbow of biological diversity. Pluvians, those translucent jellyfish-like beings, bobbed gently in their water-filled attendant spheres. The Tessex, crystalline creatures that looked like music. Someone had given sentience to a chandelier. Refracted light in quiet contemplative music patterns. A group of Phanari, small fox-like bipeds covered in silver fur, sat in the front row taking meticulous notes. And then there were the humans, 7 of them, clustered together in the middle section like they were afraid the other species might bite, which was ironic, considering what was about to happen. Music. Humanity had only been admitted to the Galactic Community 6 months ago, and their presence at the university was still something, music, of a novelty, a controversial novelty. There had been 3 separate petitions, music, to review their application, all citing concerns about their tumultuous historical records and unfortunate propensity for conflict resolution. But the Galactic Council, music, in its infinite wisdom and commitment to diversity, had approved Earth's membership anyway. Probationary membership, sure, but membership nonetheless. Keltics had voted, music, against it. Today, he continued, warming to his favorite subject, which was himself, we begin with a fundamental question that separates music, the civilized species, from the merely sapient. We shall explore the moral frameworks that govern our interactions, the ethical boundaries that define us as beings of higher consciousness. One of the Tessex, music, chimed softly, which the translator rendered as, "This sounds fascinating, Professor." "Indeed it is. Indeed it is." Keltic's mandibles, music, clicked together in what might have been a smile. "Now, to establish our baseline understanding. Music. I want to begin with a simple thought experiment, a way to gauge where each of you stands on music, the most fundamental question of morality." He paused dramatically, letting the weight, music, of his words settle over the classroom like a blanket of academic superiority. The humans looked mildly interested. One of them, a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, was openly eating something from a crinkly package. Another, a broad-shouldered man with close-crop hair, was slouched so far down in his seat he was practically horizontal. Keltics made a mental note to report music, their casual demeanor to the Dean of Student Affairs. "This question," he said, his voice dropping to what he imagined was a profound whisper, "will help us understand the vast moral distance between species. It will illuminate the path that separates those of us who have evolved beyond music, our base instincts, from those who perhaps still carry the shadows of their primitive past." A Phanari student's ears perked up with interest. "So, let me ask you all, music, and please be honest in your responses, as this is a safe space for philosophical exploration." Keltic spread all 4 arms wide in a gesture of academic benevolence. "The question is this: who here, in this room, has personally and directly taken the life of another sentient being?" He fully expected silence, perhaps 1 or 2, music, nervous shuffles. Maybe a Pluvian would bob uncertainly, misunderstanding the question through the translation, music, matrix. What he got instead would require therapy and possibly a career change. For exactly 3 seconds, music, the classroom was silent. Then, with the synchronized precision of a military drill team, 6 human hands shot into the air. Keltics blinked. All 47 lenses of his compound eyes blinked independently, creating a wave effect across his face. Music. That would have been comical under different circumstances. Excuse me. Music. The humans kept their hands up. One of them, the slouching military-looking guy, had raised his hand so casually he might have been hailing a taxi. Around the room, the reaction was immediate and varied. A Pluvian sphere literally turned cloudy with distress. Music, their gelatinous body pulsing in what the translation software rendered as a series of horrified squeaks. The Tessex began, music, refracting light in sharp, agitated patterns, filling the room with anxiety-inducing rainbows. 3 Fenari students physically recoiled, their silver fur standing on end. Surely, Keltics said, music, his voice climbing half an octave. Surely you misunderstood the question. I am asking about sentient beings, conscious, thinking, feeling creatures with inner lives and social bonds. Not plants or something. Yeah, we got it, said the woman, music, with the ponytail, her hand still raised. She'd stopped eating her snack. That seemed significant somehow. Sentient beings, people, that's what you asked. We heard you just fine, Professor, added another human. A young man with glasses and a university hoodie that read philosophy department. Even the philosophy major had his hand up. The philosophy major. Keltic's mandibles began clicking rapidly, an involuntary stress response. Then you are telling me that 6 out of 7 humans in this classroom have actually killed someone. Yeah. The military guy shrugged with one shoulder, his hand still raised with the other arm. I mean, you asked. One of the Tessex made a sound, like wind chimes falling down a staircase and had to be steadied by their neighbor. This is extraordinary, Keltic stammered. Music, his academic composure crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. This is Earth's application. Assured us that your species had moved beyond casual violence. Music, your own representatives, claimed you had achieved a state of relative peace. We have, said a third human, a young woman in an agriculture program jacket. Her hand was still up, and she seemed genuinely confused by the fuss. I mean, we are not at war, music, with ourselves right now or anything. This is actually a pretty chill period in human history. Chill? A Pluvian's translation came through as a shriek. Keltic's 4 arms began gesturing, music, frantically, like he was trying to physically push the information away. But the galactic standard, music, 4, admission requires species to have achieved at least 4 generations of non-violent conflict resolution. Your applications, music, your essays, your cultural surveys all indicated, oh, we are non-violent. Music, the military guy interrupted. Comparatively speaking. I mean, it's been like, what, 80 years since the last World War? That's pretty good for us. 80 years is nothing. Keltic's voice, music, had gone full screech now. The Pluvians have not had an internal conflict in 4,000, music, years. Well, yeah, but they're jellyfish, the philosophy student said, music, reasonably. How would they even fight? Aggressive bobbing. The Pluvian in question literally fled the room, their sphere rolling toward the exit with surprising, music, speed. Keltic's eyes swept desperately across the humans, looking for salvation, and landed on the one student who didn't have their hand raised. A young man with tired eyes and a medical program insignia on his bag. You. Keltic's voice cracked, music, with hope. You there, human student. Rivera, according to my roster, you do not have your hand raised. Rivera looked up, seeming surprised to be called on. Oh, yeah, I was actually trying to. Thank the cosmic void. Keltics clutched his chest, with 2 arms while the other 2 gesticulated wildly. At least one of your species has the moral foundation to answer honestly. At least one human in this room has not taken a life. Rivera opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. Actually, Professor, about that we will get to you in a music moment, Mr. Rivera. First, I need to understand the rest of your species. Keltics turned back to the 6 raised hands, his academic curiosity warring with his mounting existential horror. Explain yourselves. Now, starting with you. He pointed, music, at the military guy, who lowered his hand and sat up slightly. Sure thing. Professor name's Jackson, by music, the way. Combat engineer, 3 tours. Honorably discharged. He said it the way someone might. Mentioned they worked in accounting. So, yeah, sentient beings, that's a confirmed, a music. Yes from me. Keltics made a sound like steam escaping from a broken pipe. This was going to be a very long class. Keltics had stopped pacing and started swaying slightly, like a tree in a strong wind. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides, all the professorial dignity leaking out of him like air from a punctured lung. Explain, he croaked. Music. In detail. I need to understand how 7 representatives of a species, applying music for Galactic Community membership, could possibly how you could so. Casually he gestured vaguely at Jackson. Proceed. Jackson scratched his chin. Well, see, the thing is, I was military. That's kind of the job description. You sign up, you train, you deploy, and sometimes you end up in situations where it's you or them. Pretty straightforward, really. Straightforward. Keltics repeated weakly. Yeah. I mean, I didn't like it, if that helps. It's not like I woke up every morning thinking, gee, I sure hope I get to shoot someone today. But orders are orders. Rules, music, of engagement are rules of engagement. And when someone's actively trying to kill you and your unit, Jackson shrugged again. You do what you got to do. A test sex began refracting light, music, in ultraviolet frequencies, which the translation software interpreted as I need to call my parents right now. You speak of this music, said, his voice climbing again, as though it were filing administrative paperwork. Music. I mean, there was a lot of paperwork involved, actually. Every discharge, music, of a weapon requires like 3 different incident reports, and next, Keltics practically screamed. You, agriculture student. The young woman with the ponytail brightened. Oh, me. I'm Beth. Yeah, so I grew up on a farm in Montana and a farm? Keltic's mandibles clicked so rapidly they created a buzzing sound. What does agricultural work have to do with taking sentient life? Beth blinked. Oh, no, sorry. I should clarify. Not from farming. I mean, we did have to cull the herd sometimes, and there was that year with the sick chickens. But you said sentient life. So I figured you meant like actual people. Yes, actual people. Sentient beings with thoughts and dreams, music, and right. Yeah. So that would be from hunting season. Deer, mostly. Though there was that wild boar that got into our property once and my dad and I had to. Deer are not sentient. Beth frowned. I mean, you don't know that for sure. They are pretty smart. They recognize patterns. They communicate. They have social structures. They do not have music, language or technology. Or Keltic stopped himself, 2 of his arms clutching his head. Wait. You said mostly deer. What else? Oh, you know, elk, some wild turkey. Couple of coyotes that were threatening the livestock. My cousin and I got a bear once, but that was kind of a special permit situation. You hunt bears? Well, yeah, but only when the population needs management. It's actually really important for ecosystem balance. If you don't control the predator populations, they ecosystem balance? Keltics looked like he, music, might vibrate apart into his component molecules. You kill apex predators for sport? Not just for sport, Beth said defensively. We eat them, too. Bear meat's actually pretty good if you cook it right. Though you got to watch out for trichinosis. Next student, Keltics whispered. Defeated. Please. Before I lose what remains of my sanity. The philosophy student raised his hand hesitantly. Hi. Tom. So, full disclosure. Mine's a little less intentional. A tiny spark of hope flickered in Keltics' eyes. Accidental? Self-defense? More like car accident. Hit a deer on Highway 47. It died on impact. And there was this squirrel once that ran under my tire before I could stop. Oh, and I accidentally left a mousetrap set in my apartment and forgot about it. So, music, there's that. And mosquitoes, obviously. But I'm assuming you don't count those are animals. Keltics' voice had gone shrill. I specifically said sentient beings. Right, but the way you worded it was kind of ambiguous. Personally and directly taken the life of another sentient being. Doesn't specify which kind of sentient being. And there's actually a lot of philosophical, or music, debate about the boundaries of sentience. Like, are we talking about self-awareness? Theory of mind? The ability to suffer? Because depending on your framework humans. Keltics roared. Did you kill any humans? The classroom went silent. Tom adjusted his glasses. Oh, you should have just said that. Then no, my hand shouldn't be up. He lowered his hand. Then why? Because you asked about sentient beings and I think it's pretty specious to assume only humans count as sentient. I mean, we share like 98% of our DNA with chimps and they use tools. They have culture. Oh my God. Jackson muttered. Tom, you're going to give the professor an aneurysm. Do professors even have aneurysms? Beth whispered. Let's not find out. Another human replied. Keltics slumped against music, his desk, 3 arms supporting his weight while the 4th covered his eyes. Around the room, alien students were gathering their belongings and edging toward exits. The Fenari had formed a protective huddle in the corner. Their ears flat, music, against their heads. So, Jackson said into the silence. Just to clarify, Prof, you meant like actual, music, combat? Human on human violence? Keltics nodded weakly. Oh, well. Yeah, still me then. Hand goes back, music, up. Beth raised her hand again, too. Actually, yeah, me, too. My grandma was a nurse in the Pacific Theater during World War II and she's got some stories, let me tell you. And my uncle did 2 tours in your grandmother? Keltics looked up. Your elderly relatives also engaged in lethal combat? Well, yeah. War's kind of a multi-generational, music, thing for humans. Most families have somebody who served in something. Jackson nodded. A music. Statistically speaking, Prof. Most adult humans have probably killed something, music, at some point. Even if it's just putting down a sick pet or hitting an animal with their car. We are kind of involved with death. You know. It's part of the deal. Part of the deal. Keltics repeated numbly. Death is part of the deal. Music. Hey. Beth added helpfully. At least we are honest about it. Could be worse. Keltics' compound eyes suddenly swiveled to fixate on Rivera, who had been sitting quietly through the entire exchange, his hand still down, looking increasingly uncomfortable. You. Keltics. Breathed and suddenly his voice was filled with desperate reverence. Rivera, medical student, healer. Surely you represent the better angels of humanity's nature. Surely you. Rivera raised his hand slowly. Actually, Professor, I need to correct something. Keltics froze. I don't have my hand up, Rivera continued, because you asked who killed someone. Past tense. Simple past. Yes. But if you're asking who has the highest body count in this room, Rivera's hand went all the way up. That would be me. Somewhere in the back of the classroom a tesseract shattered. Music. Keltics made a sound that the translation software couldn't process. It came through as a series of a condor. Error beeps followed by what might have been. Sobbing. No. He whispered. No, no, no. You are a healer. You are studying music, medicine. The entire point of your profession is to preserve life. Not to hold up, Prof. Jackson interrupted. Music, holding up a hand. Before Rivera gets into his whole thing. I feel like maybe we should clarify some stuff. Because you're looking a little green. Well, greener. Blur. You look unwell is what I'm saying. Clarify. Keltics' voice had gone hoarse. What could you possibly, music, clarify that would make this better? Well, for starters, the deer thing, those aren't sentient. Not by galactic standards, anyway. So Tom and Beth's numbers should probably already understood that. Okay. Just checking. But also, like we're not monsters, you know. It's not like we are running around killing people for fun. There are rules, laws, consequences. Yeah, Beth chimed in. It's actually super illegal to kill people or music in most places now. We've made a lot of progress on that front. Most places, Keltics repeated faintly. Now. Right. Yeah. There are still some holdout regions, music, with capital punishment and active war zones and stuff. But on the whole, murder rates have been trending down for decades. We are doing great. Tom pushed his glasses up. There's actually a fascinating correlation between economic, music, development and reduced interpersonal violence. Steven Pinker wrote this whole book about how we are living in the most peaceful era of human. Music, history. Your most peaceful era still involves casual admission of killing. Keltics shrieked. The remaining Fenari, music, bolted for the door. Jackson leaned back in his chair. I mean, if it makes you feel better, I've got like maybe a dozen confirmed. That's not that many. There were guys in my unit with way higher numbers. A dozen. Keltics wheezed. You say a dozen the way. I would say I have read a dozen books. Well, yeah. It was war. Wars have casualties. That's kind of the defining, music, feature. How many wars has your species fought? The humans exchanged glances. Like total. Beth asked. Throughout all of history? Or just the big ones? Or do you mean per year? Tom added. Because the definition of war versus conflict versus military intervention gets kind of fuzzy and forget it. Keltics, music, clawed at his desk with two hands while the other two covered his face. I do not want to know. I withdraw the question. Wikipedia lists like 250 major conflicts just in the 20th century. Tom continued anyway, because philosophy, music, students cannot help themselves. But that's not counting civil wars, revolutions, insurgencies. And don't even get started on the ones that didn't make it into the history books. Music, Jackson added. There's a lot of fighting that happens that nobody bothers to write down. One of the remaining tesseracts began glowing an alarming shade of crimson. My grandmother Beth said, music, suddenly. Her voice taking on a fond, reminiscent quality. Used to tell me about music, rationing during the war. She was just a kid. But she remembers. The air raid sirens and the victory. Gardens and collecting. Scrap metal, music, for the war effort. She said everyone contributed. Even the children. Your children participated in war. Keltics looked, music. Like he might actually faint if his species could. Faint. Well, not on the front lines. Mostly just support roles. Although there were some resistance movements that stopped talking. And before that my great-great-grandfather fought in World War. Got gassed at the Somme, but survived. Family legend says what is a world war? Keltics demanded. How can a war be world-encompassing?